History Secrets.
To understand the critique of modern consumerism, some analysts begin by revisiting a controversial idea: the relationship between capitalism, socialism, and the transformations of the 20th century. For a long time, it was believed that Karl Marx had incorrectly predicted the course of history. Communism did not first emerge in the most advanced industrial societies. It appeared in Russia, and then in China. Meanwhile, industrialized countries in Europe and the United States followed a different path, or at least that was how it seemed. But there is an alternative interpretation. According to this view, after World War II, many Western societies partially adopted principles that resembled Marxist thinking. The worker came to occupy a central position in the organization of society. Governments invested in public healthcare systems, accessible education, labor protections. Labor unions gained political strength. Organized workers pushed for reforms. And much of the post-war prosperity was directed towards strengthening the middle class. During the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, many Western economies experienced a period of relatively balanced expansion. Stable jobs, affordable universities, and robust public services. In this model, productive labor was considered the main engine of society, producing goods, building infrastructure, developing technology. Money itself was seen merely as a tool, not as the center of the system. But starting in the 1980s, something began to change. Some analysts describe this moment as a revolt of the elites. According to this interpretation, economic elites began to reject overly egalitarian societies. Equality reduces differences in power and reduces the concentration of wealth. In this context, policies associated with neoliberalism emerged: financial deregulation, reduction of union power, privatizations. In the United States, this period became associated with the reforms of the Reagan era. In the United Kingdom, with the policies of Margaret Thatcher. The result was a profound shift in the economic structure. The central figure of society was no longer the worker, but the consumer. At first glance, this shift seemed small, but its consequences were deep. In the previous model, governments promised stable jobs, long-term careers, social security. In the new model, the promise changed. Now the goal was to offer low prices, a wide variety of products, and freedom of consumption. This change also altered the way people relate to society. The worker tends to think politically. He needs to organize, form unions, negotiate rights, pressure governments. The consumer, on the other hand, thinks differently. He competes, chooses products, seeks individual advantages. To understand this logic, imagine a simple thought experiment. Suppose each person in a community receives $1 million. The first reaction would likely be to buy something. Maybe a house, maybe a car, maybe travel. After these initial purchases, something curious would begin to happen: social comparisons. One person buys a large house. Another buys an even larger one. Photos appear on social media. Prestige begins to be measured by what each person owns. Who has more? Who has better? Who appears more successful? In this process, the initial money quickly runs out, but the desire for status remains. The solution found by many would be to turn to credit, loans, financing, debt, and gradually, the competition for social prestige pushes everyone toward increasing levels of debt. Each person tries to outdo the other. But there is another consequence of this process: the erosion of solidarity. When everyone competes for individual status, it becomes harder to build collective cooperation. Friendships become comparisons. Social relationships begin to include economic calculations. In this context emerges what some thinkers call total economic logic, a way of seeing the world exclusively through financial value. Personal relationships begin to be evaluated by utility. Careers are chosen solely for financial return. Education becomes an investment. Even intimate decisions can be influenced by calculations of status and income. When this kind of logic dominates a culture, the entire society begins to function like a market. Everything can be compared. Everything can be priced. According to this critique, this system produces something paradoxical, an extremely efficient form of social control. Because unlike traditional slavery, no one feels they are being forced. People choose to participate in the system. They want to participate. They seek recognition through it. And precisely because of that, they rarely rebel against it. This phenomenon has been described by some thinkers as the perfect form of servitude. A situation in which individuals work intensely, compete constantly, and accumulate debt, but believe they are exercising freedom because they are choosing to consume. In this sense, consumerism can function as a powerful structure of social organization, a system that channels individual ambitions into a continuous cycle of production and consumption. According to this interpretation, understanding this mechanism is essential to grasp many dynamics of the contemporary world: inequality, debt, social pressure, and also the way cultural and economic values shape our daily choices. Because, in the end, economic systems are not just financial structures, they are also systems of values. Systems that deeply influence how people think, live, and imagine the future. If we accept this interpretation, consumerism is not just an economic phenomenon. It is also a psychological and social system. A system that shapes how people perceive success, happiness, and identity. In this model, society begins to function as a permanent arena of competition. Each individual seeks visible signs of prestige: bigger house, more expensive car, more sophisticated travel. These signs function as social markers. They indicate position in the economic hierarchy. Over time, this competition transforms everyday behavior. People begin to make decisions based not only on necessity, but also on social comparison. The goal is no longer just to live well. It becomes to appear successful. Social media amplifies this process. Photos of trips, houses, restaurants, lifestyles. Each image becomes a small symbol of status, and each symbol generates new comparisons. This dynamic can produce constant psychological pressure, the feeling that there is always someone living better, earning more, owning more. In response, many individuals try to keep up with this standard, even if it means taking on debt. Credit becomes an essential tool of this system. Financing, cards, loans. They allow people to consume today what they still cannot afford. But this mechanism also creates financial dependence, long-term monthly payments, extended commitments. Gradually, a significant portion of income becomes allocated to paying these obligations, which reduces real economic freedom. At this point, a paradox emerges. Modern societies celebrate individual freedom, but at the same time produce high levels of debt. This debt limits choices, restricts mobility, and creates constant pressure to maintain stable income. Another consequence involves social fragmentation. When everyone competes for individual status, collective cooperation can weaken. Workers stop organizing. Communities become more fragmented. Common interests become less visible. In this environment, power structures can operate with less resistance, because collective attention is focused on individual disputes. This logic helps explain why consumption movements often replace political debates. Choosing products becomes a form of personal expression, while broader structural issues remain in the background. For some analysts, this process creates an extremely stable system, because it combines economic incentives with deep psychological motivations. People work intensely to earn money to consume to demonstrate success. And this demonstration reinforces the collective desire to keep participating in the system. Thus, the cycle perpetuates itself. Production, consumption, comparison, debt nuance. In this sense, consumerism can be interpreted as a sophisticated form of social organization, a system that channels individual ambition to keep the economic machine running. This does not mean it is inevitably negative. Consumption also drives innovation, creates jobs, stimulates entrepreneurial creativity. But understanding its cultural and psychological effects helps reveal dimensions of this system that are often invisible. Especially when we think about questions such as happiness, identity, and purpose. Because, despite material abundance in many modern societies, research shows that levels of anxiety and dissatisfaction remain high. This contrast raises important questions. To what extent does material prosperity guarantee well-being? And to what extent do societies need to balance economic growth with other values? Values such as community, free time, human relationships, collective meaning. Answering these questions may be one of the great cultural challenges of the 21st century. Because understanding how consumerism works does not necessarily mean abandoning IT, but it may help societies rethink priorities, and perhaps find ways to combine economic prosperity with more balanced lives. In the end, social systems always reflect human choices, and choices can change. When new ideas emerge, when new generations question what they inherited. Perhaps the future depends precisely on this capacity for collective reflection, to look at the system we live in, and ask whether it truly represents the kind of society we want to build. This was just one of the many enigmas that have crossed the centuries. Around the world, there are lost cities, indecipherable manuscripts, and historical events that still challenge our understanding. Some of these mysteries have begun to be revealed. Others remain completely unexplained. And in the next documentary, we will explore one of these enigmas that continues to intrigue historians to this day. Because when it comes to the history of humanity, there is always a new secret waiting to be discovered. Because some secrets of history are still waiting to be revealed.